Hi, Gigi. Could you explain the perspective of someone who is high on the scale of narcissistic personality disorder? Spiritually, what leads someone to operate in this manner, and what are the consequences for living as such? Yeah, this is a really great question. How I have always read people with narcissistic personality disorder is that soul, that individuality is at a very specific point in their evolution where they have been very, very, very damaged, very, 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 very traumatized. In my opinion, most narcissists have been traumatized to an extreme degree. And then what happens with the soul is that it becomes very distorted because, our to develop and to awaken and evolve, we need love and we need compassion and we need very specific things that are basically loving. And we don't receive those things. It kind of causes the whole personality to go into a downward spiral where it will kind of do anything to get that or get anything close to that. So when a soul becomes very damaged and very traumatized, usually it will go into a cycle of narcissism. And what that narcissism is actually an individual in survival mode. That's how I see it, is you have a person that has entered such trauma that their whole worldview is now, the world is a dark place. The world is a dangerous place. That's just how it is. And now I'm going to act in this extremely dark way. And it's going to be all about me getting energy. And they think that that's what the world is. And so I think narcissism is directly related to a soul being in survival mode. And that comes from being heavily, heavily, heavily traumatized. And so they're not really viewing the world at all in the same way as somebody who is on the upswing of that, where they're actually healing their trauma, they're awakening, they're going through a spiritual enlightenment process. That person is on the complete other side of perception. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're living in a different world. Their whole energy body is functioning differently. And so usually when the narcissistic personality starts to take in, that individual has been heavily abused to the point that their worldview is that the world is a very dark and dangerous place, and I have to get mine. Everyone's going to do this to me, so I'm just going to do it to them, and I'm going to be better at it. It's all about getting energy, right? And so they're energy vampires, essentially. And there's also, with narcissists, you can also tell that there's an emotional part of them that is shut down. And there's a spiritual part of them that is shut down. It's not functioning like it is in a healthy person. There is no empathy. There is no compassion. And empathy and compassion are actually the sign of a old soul, or of a soul that is highly developed. And when empathy and compassion is lost, then that means that the soul is it's sort of trapped in this trauma, because the soul, that person doesn't feel like they can be vulnerable. They don't feel like they can be open and loving, because they associate that with being hurt and being abused and being traumatized. And so for them, they don't see those qualities as being as being productive in life. they associate those qualities and like innocence and things like this with being weak. And so you'll notice that there is this like might is right attitude with many narcissists at like that is just in there, and it's predatory because they haven't come around the other side of life where they've healed their trauma and they understand that um, compassion, love, and empathy is the only thing that ever lifts your own spirit and makes the world a functional place. And so that is my perspective on the narcissist, is that it's the soul is in, survival mode. The soul has been very, very deeply traumatized. And usually when it gets really, really, really bad, there's no logical conversation that you can have with that person. And there is a spectrum of it as well. There's some people that have, slight narcissism, because maybe they're just going into it or leaving that dark pattern. And then there's people who are extremely deep into it. And really the only thing that can work is time. It just takes time for that soul to go through enough cycles where it eventually wakes up, hopefully.
Spiritual News Television, AA Creation 911.